Hello friends, I'm Ashley and today I'm going to be wrapping up my entire 2020 year of reading.
Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
So this is going to be very long because Goodreads says I have read 60 books, but I don't know if I can trust Goodreads because some of it says 2x, like I've read it twice and I've definitely not read it twice. So maybe it's more like 54 books. Between 54 and 60, that's how many books I've read this year. That's all I know. So right off the bat, it's not great what I read, considering the circumstances, but I read the last 3 books in the Harry Potter series. I'm not going to talk about that much more, but I'm just going to say I read them. But yeah, I read them. It's happened. I'm probably never going to read them again, and then that's that. So the next book I read was The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang, and it was so cute. It was so beautiful. This book is a graphic novel about a dressmaker and a prince that secretly wears dresses, and he has a dressmaker come and be his private dressmaker and make dresses for them and show them off, and it's just a very beautiful story, and the ending to it is amazing and very accepting, and I highly recommend. So this next book is a nonfiction book and it's called It's Great to Suck at Something. I read this book because I'm an art student and it can be very competitive and very time consuming, and you're always your largest critic yourself. Sometimes, you just gotta realize that things aren't gonna work out the way you want it to. So I found this book and I thought it would be really good because, the whole premise is about being good at sucking at something, and this book really annoyed me, honestly. It's about this woman who uprooted her entire family for her hobby of surfing, and like, that's fine, but she's bad at surfing. That's the point. She's like not good at it, and it's the thing that she sucks at, and she loves sucking at it, and like, that's fine too. But she uprooted her entire family. She bought this house in a random place next to the beach. Her entire family didn't want to go, and how she was so mad at them for not wanting to be a part of her hobby. Like, you can honestly read the first 2 chapters of this book and read the entire book. You'll get it instantly. It has a good message, don't take everything so seriously. But the privilege that this woman has, and the way she talks, and the way she just like has no consequences, or like how she feels about her family, really bother me. So I mean, read it if you want, but I wouldn't recommend this one. So I finally read Milk and Honey. I did not like this book. I like poetry, I do. It's really hard for me to read good ones, I guess. I don't know. My problem though with this book was the way it was set up. It was like, I loved my husband, and the next one would be like, my uncle sexually assaulted me, and then like the next poem would be like, I love the way we have sex. Like, it was just like, what? Like, first of all, who are we talking about? Second of all, what is going on? Third of all, why? I don't know why the poems were grouped the way they were. It was very uncomfortable and very jarring. I don't know if it was supposed to be like weird and shocking. You were supposed to be confused the whole time about who she was exactly talking about, but it was weird. It was very, very weird. So the next book I read was The Great Gatsby. This was a reread. I did read it in high school, but I literally could not remember a thing about it, and it was fine. I didn't really care for anyone or anything, and everyone just annoyed me, and that's that. So the next book I read was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and it was the first time I read this book. I finally got to have my hold come in from the library. It was such a long time that I had it on hold. I gave this book a 4-star. It's very good. It's very romantic. There's just a lot of politics in it. Like, obviously that's the premise, the plot of the book, but I just don't like reading about our world politics because, I'm constantly doing that. I'm constantly trying to keep up with the news. So reading about our world politics so much was like not my favorite. Like, if there was less politics, I definitely would have enjoyed it a lot more. The 2 main characters emailing each other was probably like one of the most romantic things I've ever read about, but overall, it was just too consumed with politics with me. Like, I love a good fantasy politics, I love a good sci-fi politics, but this one, just like real world politics, isn't for me, So the next book I read is Bad Girls Throughout History, 100 Remarkable Women Who Changed the World. And I love this book. It's exactly what it says, 100 Remarkable Women Who Changed the World. There's many women I have never heard of, and there's obviously a lot of women in there that are very known. It goes from ancient times. I believe the first woman talked about is Lilith from the Bible. But yeah, it was really cool. It was so interesting. Each woman had like a little illustration drawn of them. It was very moving and empowering, and I highly recommend if you're any type of history buff or history buff of women. I really think you should pick this book up. So the next book is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which is a graphic novel about a queer girl and another queer girl who keeps breaking up with her, and it's a pretty toxic relationship. And it's just like trying to figure yourself out, trying to figure out your relationship, and how a toxic relationship can not only affect just your relationship, but your life and your friends' lives and your family's lives. And it was pretty interesting. I just didn't like the end. Like, yes, the toxic relationship ended, but there's this whole subplot with like the main character's best friend that just kind of like came out of nowhere. I felt like I was not expecting what happened, but it was fine. I gave it a 3.5. So the next book I read is a thriller, and it's definitely the most disappointing read I've read all year. Well, maybe not the most disappointing, but pretty up there. It is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan. Boy, oh boy, I can't even explain what it is about this book that I just like. Well, I can't explain, but there's a lot of spoilers to why I don't like this book. First of all, it was very boring. And when something finally happened for it not to feel boring to me, I was like, oh, cool, yes, let's do it. And then it just got boring again, and then it got irritating, and then I got mad. And it also had one of like the most stupid epilogues I've ever read. Like, there was no point to that epilogue. That it didn't need to happen. It didn't need to be put in there. It just added another level of like my hatred towards this. Like, it just like it didn't need to happen. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling how it ended, and I would have changed a lot of things about this book. So the next book I read was Bone Houses, and this book, honestly, it was just very average of the road YA. It didn't really do anything for me. This book is about a girl and her family, and her parents are dead and missing, and her uncle is missing, and the Duke of the city is like threatening to take their house and like sell them or something. I can't remember, but he was gonna make them go somewhere. And then this boy that is a map maker, he makes maps, he draws maps, he loves it. It was just like middle of the road. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was very much like a YA book, if you know what I mean. I feel like I would have liked it when I was 17. Being almost 23 that I am, it just wasn't for me. I definitely recommend, if you're like a huge YA lover, you probably like this book, but I'm like slowly moving away from YA fantasy, so yeah. So the next book I read was Intercepted, and this is about a woman who is dating this NFL player, and he's a big douchebag, and her old flame is now currently playing on her current boyfriend's FNL team, if that makes sense. NFL, FNL, what is it? I don't know. I don't watch football. I don't really like sports romances that much, but I was like curious about this book. I love the cover art of it. I think it's so good. But this is one of those books where you love the first half and you hate the second half. So she eventually obviously got out of her toxic relationship with her current boyfriend and got into a relationship with her old flame hookup thing. And I hated the dude. I hated him so much. Like, he was fine at first. We didn't really know much about him, but the more we learned about him, I was like, no, you don't need to be with him. Like, I loved the main character. Did I love anyone else in the story? No. Everyone sucked. Like, I hated everyone. I remember there was this one part where the main character was like, maybe I should stop dating football players. And I was like, please do that. Like, please save yourself and stop dating these douchebags, because seriously, you could do so much better. And that's my take on the book. now we are getting into the Black Dagger Brotherhood realm. I read the first 8 books in the Black Dagger Brotherhood, and boy, oh boy, I don't know why I just didn't stop. Because honestly, the first book, not good. I didn't like the first book. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't for me. My favorite book in the series was the second book, and I was like, okay, maybe it was just because it was her debut. You know, you can't judge someone on their debut. They always grow after their debut. They learn a lot. And the second book was just really good. I really liked a lot about it. And then the third book happened, which is fine. It was okay. And then the fourth book happened. This book. Everyone says that their favorite member of the Black Dagger Brotherhood is Vicious, and I cannot understand why. I'm gonna get into like some serious topics. It's terrible. It's so bad. He's like the most disgusting human being ever, or vampire anyway. And he admitted to being a rapist. He literally admitted to raping someone. And then he fully rapes his love interest. He mind wipes her mind because the vampires have mind control. And he has sex with her when she doesn't know who he is in her sleep. And he's like controlling her mind so that she's like accepting for him to have intercourse with her, and it's just very disgusting. And she thinks she's losing her mind because obviously her body is going to show signs of having intercourse, and like there's like these little messages he'll leave for her because he's so in love with her. And it was really disgusting. It was really gross. J.R. Ward really loves to use rape as like a means as a plot to, I don't know, I think she like loves it. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'm like so mad about talking about J.R. Ward. I'm sweating. The next book I read was an amazing book, so that's nice. But it was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and it was just so good. I listened to it on audio, and I had such a good time with it. This was before lockdown happened. The gyms were still open, and I was listening to it while I was working out, and then I was like trying not to cry, and I was like I think people thought I was like working myself out too much, like everyone was staring at me, but I was like trying not to cry about what I was listening to and working out. So I was hoping people just thought I was like being normal-ish at the gym, but it was very funny. If you don't know what The Poet X is about, it's about a girl trying to figure out her family dynamics. Her brother's got a whole thing going on, and her relationship, her family's religion. So the next book is Aphrodite Made Me Do It. It is a poetry book about a woman and her experiences, and it's like Aphrodite is narrating and this girl that Aphrodite visits is narrating. It's really beautiful. I highly recommend. It made me feel so many things. I really want to get one of the quotes tattooed. Like, that's how much I love it. Like, please go and read this. If you love poetry, like, you will love this. So the next one is my time with the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, and I'm just gonna go quickly through this because I have a whole video of me reading all of the books in the Inheritance trilogy. And it's about gods in this fantasy world. It's adult fantasy, and this girl has to go to like the capital city, you can say, because she might be next in line for the crown. And her relationship with these gods and how her life might be more entwined with the gods than she ever knew. So the next book is The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman, and this book is like a creepy Snow White and Sleeping Beauty in the same story. It was really good. The art style was really good. It was kind of like a children's book, but it's like a very creepy children's book. I don't know if it's actually classified as a children's book. It's also like a little bit queer. So the next book I read was The Death of Miss Westaway. I read this for the Backlist readathon. Again, I'm not going to talk much about this because I talked about this a lot in another video, but it is about a girl who decides to con this rich family members because her name is so similar to someone who might be inheriting money, and she finds out that her life might be more connected to this family than she ever realized. The next book is The Undead Girl Gang, and oh my gosh, I love this book so much. It is about a girl whose best friend dies in the same week as these two other girls, and all of them has been labeled a suicide, and she does not believe that. So she goes to her best friend's grave, tries to resurrect her. She does, but she also resurrects the two other girls who were her bullies, and it's just about them trying to figure out how they died because they cannot remember the week leading up to their deaths. And like female friendship, like honestly, like the friendship in this book is so good. It's very sisterly, and I highly recommend. The next book is An Enchantment of Raisins. The next book is Enchantment of Ravens, and it's about a girl in a fantasy world, in a fairy fantasy world, that paints portraits for fairies. And one day she paints a portrait with sorrow in one of the people's eyes, one of the fairies' eyes, and the fae people are not supposed to have emotions, so she has to like go on trial, and like it's a little bit of an adventure story and a whole lot of a love story. The next book is Crescent City, House and Earth and Blood, or whatever, by Sarah J. Maas. I really like this book, and this is about a girl, Bryce, who is trying to figure out her best friend's murder, and this other dude that's like assigned to help her figure it out. I really liked it when I read it. As more time goes on, I'm not sure if I liked it as much as I'm thinking, or if I was just stuck inside Bryce's head for so long that I was forced to love it, if that makes sense. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like I need to reread it, which I'm not doing anytime soon because that's just too long of a book to reread right now. But I don't know. I gave it initially a 5-star, and then I brought it down to a 4-star, and I feel like it should be a 3-star. It's just like, it's very long, and it doesn't need to be that long, and I feel like I'm saying everything else that everyone else says, but yeah. So the next book is The Tales of the Particular. It is a book about fairy tales, and it's very magical. It's very fun. I highly recommend. I think a lot of people can find enjoyment in this, and I definitely did. So the next books are the first 2 books in the Wayward Children series. I was gonna do a whole video of me reading that series, especially because all the books are so short, and the 5th one finally came out, but I'm not like the biggest fan of what was happening in those. Like, it's a great concept. If you don't know what it's about, it is about like these kids that are basically like Alice in Wonderland, or the kids from Narnia, or the kids that went to Peter Pan, and like what happens to them after they've been to the magical world, after they've been to this place where they finally feel like they belong. Like what happens when they finally have to come back to the real world and deal with real world problems again. Like I said, I love the concept for it, but it's just so short that I feel like I could not connect with the characters, especially the first character in the first book, because she's asexual, and like that's so very rare to see in a book, and I was very excited about that, but I just couldn't like connect with anything. I couldn't connect with the plot or the characters or what was happening, because it's just so short. Like, it generally takes me 100 pages just to like get into a book and start caring about it, and since these books ended like at 120 pages, like I just felt like I finally started caring and the book ended, you know what I mean? So this next book is definitely my most disappointing book of the year. It's gonna be the entire year. I know it is. Like, anything I read after that, I know it's gonna be, this is gonna top the cake, and that is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And Jennifer L. Armentrout is one of my favorite authors, and I was very excited to read this, and I didn't like it. Anyway, this is a book about a woman, and she is labeled the maiden, and she's very important to the people in this world. Honestly, I don't know why she was very important to the people in this world. Like, she never really explained her significance. You know, she's this girl that is veiled. She's not allowed to show her face. She's not allowed people to talk to her. She's not allowed many friends. She's a virgin. She's not allowed to have sex. And then there's this guy who becomes her guard because her guards keep dying because people want to assassinate her. Why? I never understood. After a while, we were told why people kept dying around her. It's just that this is a fantasy world, and we were introduced to like 2 new species of people at like 80% of the book, and it was very weird. I don't know, the pacing was very weird of the book overall. Like, I kid you not, the characters had the same conversation at least 6 times. The exact same conversation, almost word for word. And it wasn't just like these two characters, like this girl and the love interest. It was also this girl and her mentor. It was also this girl and her best friend. Like, yeah, she's not allowed to have many people, but the people that she does have, she just kept having the same conversation with them over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like, it would never stop. This book was like 600 pages, and it easily could have been 300 from how many times they had the same conversation. I get maybe having a conversation twice, but like, it just kept happening. And then, like, because I was so annoyed from the same conversation happening over and over again, when we finally got to the end and all these reveals happened, and I was like, I just didn't care. Like, I did not care. Like, there was like whole smut happening, and I was like disgusted because I couldn't care for, I hated these characters. I hated everything. I don't know what happened. I don't know. Jennifer L. Armentrout's like adult romance like usually doesn't work out for me, so maybe that's what happened, but like, I'm just so mad about it. Like, I'm still mad about it, and it's been like 2 months since I read this book. So the next 8 books are all Penelope Douglas books, and since I talked in depth about all of these before, I'm just gonna link that video down below about me going through these Penelope Douglas books. I would like to say though that my opinion has changed a little bit about some of these books, especially Credence and some of the Devil Knights stuff. Birthday Girl is still pretty good. I love that book. I think it's amazing. All the other books, trash. Honestly, I'm sorry. I just didn't like it. I don't know why I talked so highly of the books when I feel like I just blocked out a lot of the things when I hated them, or they were like really traumatic things that happened in the book, and I was like, okay, delete that memory. Okay, that book was really good after like I blocked the memory out of something happening. I don't know. So the next book I tried to read was Gideon the Ninth. I DNF'd it, so like I don't know if I can say that I read it, but I just want to talk about it because I don't know what the heck happened. I just felt like I was reading a different language. Like, it was definitely English, but like I didn't know what was happening. It was like I walked up the steps. Now I was being stabbed 10 floors below, even though I just said I was walking up the steps. Like, it was very strange. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one that has this problem. So the next 3 books is Sadie, Phallus Fair, and Phallus Fair. Again, I talked about all these books in my video about reading Murderous Women. It was a really good time. Sadie and Phallus Fair are phenomenal. Highly recommend. Please go read them. Go read them. They're amazing. If you love watching rapists get murdered, please read this. The next book is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which is so long of a title. But I also did a whole video where I read Grady Hendrix's books, and I had a good time. They were freaking me out, even though they were parody horror. There's this one scene in my best friend's exorcism that I can't get out of my head because it was so gross. So yeah. So the next book is Steel Crow Saga that I read. And if you don't know, recently it came out that Paul Kruger is not a very good person. He apparently sexually harassed a bunch of people, and he had like the worst apology I've ever read. He like really sounded like he was trying to blame the victims of what he did. So I don't know. I just know that I'm not gonna read his books anymore. I highly recommend you don't read his books anymore. And that's that on that. So the next book I read was Mooncakes. Oh my god, I love this book. I love this book so much. It's a graphic novel about some witches and a werewolf, a non-binary werewolf, a queer witch, some queer witch grandmothers. It's just a good time. Highly recommend. Please go read it. It has a cute art style and everything. So the next book is the Speak graphic novel. It was alright. I'm probably gonna unhaul it in the future. If you don't know what it's about this girl that gets sexually assaulted, kind of going through that and trying to deal with it. I think this book did a lot of great things for its time, the original novel. They made a movie about it and all that, but I just think that they could have maybe updated it. The book, there's some weird saying, there's like some xenophobia stuff. And there's this like whole thing about this black boy with his racist teacher. I don't know, it was very weird. It was very uncomfortable. There was a lot of girl hate. I don't know. So we are coming up to the last 3 books. Woo! And the last 3 books, are my favorite books. And that would be The Black Witch Chronicles by Laurie Forest, which is a very controversial book here on BookTube, but whatever. I love this book. I love these books so much. The second book in the series is amazing. So if you don't know what these books are about, it's hard to talk about them without getting into some intense spoilers, but this is a fantasy world about a very privileged girl learning that the world is not all sunshine and rainbows. That's all I can really say. And how she deals with that, and how she learns and grows and has a character arc that is not just in the first 200 pages, okay? You have to get to part 3 in the book. The third book is, it kind of felt like a second book in a series, you know, it like kind of suffered from that second book syndrome. There's 2 books after this one, and it definitely set up stuff for the next books. So it says I've been talking for 45 minutes and I am tired. I'm not gonna lie, my mouth hurts from talking so much. So yeah, that's all the books that I've read this year so far. I feel like I've had a pretty good reading experience. I did try reading The Priority of the Orange Tree. My library hold, or my Libby hold, went out before I could finish it, so I'm planning to still read it eventually. I just don't know when that's going to happen, when I can get the library hold back, because there's 12 people waiting for it ahead of me, so we'll see. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. I've never done one before. I am sweating because I'm so hot and I talked so aggressively about some of those books. If I inspired you to read one of these books, please let me know. If you've read some of these books and have a different opinion about some of these books, let me know. I would love to hear other people's opinions and how they feel about books. Like, sometimes my favorite thing to watch people trash talk my favorite books. It's just a fun time, I don't know. But yeah, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. I don't really know what else to say. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna sleep, because I sleep when I'm not in front of the camera. Bye!